Alright. That little countdown you see there is the amount of time that we have until the timing actually starts, which is when Samus starts moving. So with that, I think we are ready to go. Alright, first things first, I want to talk about the movement in Metroid 2. There are 3 different movement speeds in this game. There are Samus when she is running, Samus when she is rolling, and Samus when she is in the air. When Samus is in the air, she is the slowest. She is moving, I believe, 1 pixel per frame. When she is on the ground and walking, she is 1.5 pixels per frame. And when she is rolling, she is 2 pixels per frame. This is important because it means that we really have to optimize how we move in order to be able to make anything. There's a lot of depth in this game, a lot of little things with that movement. Though one thing that does make that easier is the Varia suit we'll be getting later, which brings our walking speed the same speed to rolling speed. Right here we have our first Metroid. This is an Alpha Metroid. They take 5 missiles to kill. We have a variety of strats for killing them quickly. And they're just generally not very much of a threat. They're mostly just things to get by. That shaking that you see right there is something that you'll see every time that we kill all of the Metroids in an area. That means the acid is lowering in the planet and allows us to go deeper into the planet's core. Now I'm going to talk about another mechanic that you're about to see right here, which is damage boosting. Whenever we get damaged by an enemy, as long as we hit the jump button while we are still in the knockback from the enemy, we will get another jump. This is important for another trick later called Skyscraper, where we'll be climbing up to get early Spring Ball. If we had come through it earlier, this area would be filled with acid, and this hallway right over here would have been impassable. We have to decide how we're optimizing rooms based on a variety of factors, including the time it takes to morph, because it can make it not even worth it to roll into a ball, depending on the length of the platform. Which is why we want to be rolling off platforms whenever we can, because that lets us do an unmorph jump, which is another mechanic that's carried over from the original NES Metroid game. The early part of this game, I heard it talked about that one of the runs earlier was front-loaded, and Metroid 2 is pretty similar in that regard, where almost all of the threat in this run of like dying or anything like that comes around at the start of the run. We do a lot of damage jumping and just a lot of health-based movement, and because of that we have to be very conscious of our health throughout this early stage of the run. So a couple times you will see me go pretty low, but I definitely know what I'm doing. I'm used to this, been doing this for about 4 years now. Yes, apologies about the audio, by the way. That is not something I can fix, unfortunately. The game audio, there's not really a way for me to get it to go through my computer, so this is the highest I can get it. So we're going to be getting our first power-up here. This is the bombs, pretty staple Metroid item. There's actually not really very much speed tech tied to bombs. They're pretty much just used for what they are used in any Metroid game, to clear out blocks and the like. Another little thing I'm going to show you in just a moment is crouch jumping. Samus has certain jump heights, and when you crouch, that jump height is halved. That's used to make some shorter jumps. Because like I said, we want to spend as little amount of time in the air as we possibly can. It wastes a lot of time. This is going to be our first E-Tank. So now we don't have to worry about our health for a while. The next big health gate in the run is a trick I mentioned earlier called Skyscraper. I'm going to be doing a safety save before that we would not normally be doing just for the sake of the marathon, making sure that nothing goes wrong. Normally we would have to come back to this room with a spider ball to get up there and get that, but we just do a quick little bomb jump into an unmorphed jump. Let's just get that missile tank now. I purposely bonk my head on that platform right there because otherwise we would go up too high and waste more time flying around. The item we're going to get right now is the spider ball, which is a really important piece of speed tech in this game. There's a trick that you're going to be able to see called spider throwing, and for some reason, only when moving to the left, if you use the spider ball in the air while Samus has any sort of upward momentum from like a bounce or a spring ball jump, she will go the same speed as if she was rolling on the ground. Alright, we're about to go kill our second Metroid, so we're going to climb up a few walls with Spider Ball. Then we're going to head back into the ruins to get a couple more pickups before we head to the lower half of Area 1. Personally, I'm a big fan of Metroid 2, obviously, and I think it's a really good speed game for pretty much anyone to run. There's very, very little RNG. The only RNG in the whole game is the Metroids and 2 enemies that are in the same room. And so it lets you see your progression of skill very quickly. It's almost all execution all the time, and so you don't have to worry about bad RNG or a bad cycle, or even bad drops generally. Drops will only matter in a couple really close health areas. Alright. I didn't really point it out before, but here we're going to see our second spider throw. If you notice, I start flying a lot faster in the air once I get that upwards momentum. We used to use a strat to lag out the spawns of these guys, but you can actually just hit them just while moving, so I've kind of considered it unnecessary at this point, though we will be seeing a similar room later where we spam the shot button to try and get the enemies to lag out. There's a lot of things hidden in the walls and ceilings of this game for experienced players. This little shortcut is one of them. It saves some time going along the bottom down there. That refill will be important later too, so we can refill our health coming back out of Area 1. Missiles are going to be generally our stronger projectile, and they're also the only way that we can hurt Metroids. The only Metroids that can be harmed by anything other than beams are the larval Metroids, which can be frozen, just like in any other Metroid game. This is always a fun little room to go through. There's not a whole lot of technicality to the movement in this room, but the timing of the missiles is interesting. Like, each one has a little different time that we've labbed out in order to be able to kill those guys in the most effective way. We generally want these guys to follow us towards the exit of the room just to waste as little as time as possible, because obviously we need to kill them to leave. You saw a little bit of a glitch there. When you do the damage jump that I was talking about, it actually resets your iframes, and so if you're not careful, if you run into an enemy, you can actually take double damage from that enemy, or even more. Nice, got him stuck up in the corner. And now we are leaving Area 1. We are going to be heading to Area 2, which is known as the Hydro Station in AM2R, if any of you guys are familiar with that. Another quick little damage jump off this guy. Gets us up here where we can refill our health. Alright. Now we're going to be heading towards a big trick called Skyscraper. We're going to be combining an unmorphed jump and a lot of really quick succession damage jumps to climb up the right side of the big tower in Area 2, where we're not really supposed to be yet, because it gets us early Spring Ball and saves us some time of having to go around and up the left side. There's not a whole lot going on in terms of, like, when we have to go around the central shaft of the planet. So, one interesting thing is that actually in our out of bounds category, since you still have to kill all the Metroids, it just skips a couple areas of traveling through this central shaft. So you still kind of get the whole experience and just lose a little bit of the downtime, which is why a lot of people, or some people, choose to run out of bounds. There are a couple more inconsistent warps, but the easiest ones, which still save a lot of time, are those. If I have time after the run, I'll be showcasing one of those out of bounds real quick. I have a save state ready because the emulator allows you to have one save state, and I'll show off the warp between Area 1 and 2 if I have the time. So let's hope everything goes well. This is another one of those rooms where you have a lot of, like, really little movement optimization, because you don't want to jump over these guys unless you have to, so we try to morph and unmorph under them as quickly as we can. Flipside has a little bit better of a time than me. At one point I was number 2, but I kind of took a back seat for a while. Okay.
And the times just kept getting lower and lower.
Yeah, then Behemoth and Metroid McFly... Well, first Zorlax7 showed up, and he actually did a run at I believe it was Link's Awakening at at the last GDQ. It might have been a Kirby game, actually. But, he was the first guy to break sub-hour, which we weren't even sure if was possible, because MTI's world record that we were still all trying to beat was 1 hour and 1 minute and something. And then Behemoth and Metroid McFly showed up and just tore the game apart. Alright, so now we're going to be doing Skyscraper. Starts off with this unmorph jump. Then we get bounced up by these guys. They're called Senjus. And there we go. There's a more optimal strat for that, but it's but it's still pretty quick to do it that way and much, much safer. Alright, this is Arachnus. This is the only non-Metroid boss in the original Metroid 2. And this gives us Spring Ball. This is a hugely important part of our speed strategy. Because, like I said, this allows us to spider throw whenever we want. So you're going to see our first big Spring Ball spider throw here. We're going to spider throw across this entire pit, bounce off this little guy, and get to a Metroid that's hiding over here. And this is on 3DS VC, to be clear. The save state is just something built into the Nintendo Virtual Console emulator on the 3DS. I believe it's on the I believe it's also on the Wii U console like that. Alright, so we are going to open up this pit here while waking this Metroid up to save a little bit of time. Alright, cool. Got him stuck up in the corner for a few hits. There's a little bit of a bounce whenever you fall a distance greater than a tile while morphed. And so we try to mitigate that whenever we can. There's a few different ways you can do that. You can either start a spider throw off of it, you can unmorph and land and then remorph once you land, or you can do a tiny little hop with the spring ball. All those. I believe the fastest way is to spider throw though, because that you don't have any lag frames. Then you don't even have to bother remorphing. So that's the high jump. Does pretty much what it says on the can, same as almost any other Metroid game. Alright, this is a little jump here. I like to call it the Three Stooges as a little nickname, because we bounce off 3 of these little wall shoot guys and then end up here again. I think Wallfire is their official name in like the Metroid Bestiary. "100% and any percent in this game are actually pretty similar categories, since we still have to kill all the Metroids. So I actually generally just stick to 100% on a personal preference, just because it's a lot easier to finish runs of. Any percent just turns out to be a much more like dangerous and kind of variable version of 100%. Didn't quite make that spring ball jump, have to do that again. One thing I will mention to anyone who's interested, I have a tutorial for this on my YouTube channel. Though it is quite old, I will admit. It doesn't exactly have all the updated room strats or anything like that, and I do actually plan to be remaking it at some point in the relatively near future. In a little bit more of a segmented way, more scripted, because it... Alright. So the next major thing that we're going to be getting is the Varia suit. That's very important, as I said earlier, because it gives us the same running speed as the as our rolling speed, which makes it much less of a concern having to optimize every little bit of our movement to be rolling. I swear, sometimes it feels like this game was designed around spider throwing. Like, some of the gaps that you are able to hit with a spider throw feel like way too perfect. Like the fact that spider throwing from the top of that area throws you right onto that one enemy out in the abyss, and the fact that spider throwing right there lands you right in between, like, the different tiles. It's really interesting. Now this Metroid is you'll see that's the first time that we can do that. There's a couple different alphas that we can just get stuck in the ceiling like that. For whatever reason, it doesn't happen as much to the other Metroids. Like, they'll get stuck on something, but they won't get stuck in something. But you can actually shove alpha Metroids up inside the ceiling. And that just trivializes them. Alright, so nothing hiding on the Chozo statue this time. Everything's hidden in the back. Now, this is a little bit of a trick, and it works well on the Game Boy, but not so much on the Game Boy Color, where the item spheres have a different color. Because you're not supposed to know which one is the Varia suit until you, like, destroy them all. But on the, on 3DS, or not on 3DS, I'm sorry, on a Game Boy Color, so on stuff like a Super Game Boy or a, Game Boy Player, which a lot of the other runners of this game play on, there is actually it's just a bright orange ball in the middle of a bunch of normal colored ones. For anyone interested in running this game, feel free to hit me or Flipside up after this run. We have a Discord server that we are both on the mod team / admin team for, and we would be happy to show you guys the ropes. Alright, we are now going to fight our first Gamma Metroid, which is the first evolution of a Metroid. These are a bit of a pain to deal with because they have an electrical attack which can give them invincibility frames to missiles. So what we usually try to do is lock them in the corner as much as possible. I'm going to try to lock this one down there. Alright, let's see if I can get him to come on and play. There we go. And you can negate their iframes if you just continue to hit them. They won't be able to strike back at you. This is one of the more annoying alphas, just because he's kind of like awkwardly in the air in the middle of the room, so there's not really a good strat to get him. Come on, wake up. They can be a little bit on screen before they officially like register that they're awake, which you can actually use to take a pot shot at them too, which is pretty funny. Like if you just shoot the frozen Metroid while it's on screen, it'll take damage and then just not activate yet. And here is the last Metroid for this area. Okay, he doesn't have quite as clean a lock as the other one. We do have to kind of stick him in the corner and take a couple of tries at him. And that's all the Metroids. We are not quite done in this area yet, though. There is one more item that we kind of put off till the end because it's a little bit out of the way. With high jump, a lot of these similar looking rooms to rooms we've been in earlier are really trivialized. And damage jumping is always our friend, especially with high jump. It lets us get places so quickly. This part is always a little stressful. It's easy to miss time hitting down with the spider ball when the bomb goes off, and it makes it like very easy to be like, oh no. And then just, if you fall all the way down, it can be a huge time loss. Alright, so I'm going to show off a new route change that we did recently. We actually figured out that as long as you do it well, it is faster to go up the back of this tower rather than going through the front of it. Because otherwise we'd have to go through a bunch of interior rooms of the thing. So instead we just go over it now. I will agree that the sound effects of this game have a certain satisfying crunch to them. Just getting over another enemy, and there we go. That is the end of Area 2. Area 3 isn't going to introduce a new Metroid type yet. It's more focused on just like a big exploration area, and there's going to be a couple neat upgrades. Alright. Movement optimization in this little section isn't a huge deal. But there's a couple little things you can do. one cool looking little strat that I'm going to be doing here is something recently discovered by Behemoth. Remember how I mentioned that we don't want to we don't want to bounce from a tile higher than the ground? Well, if we do these little spider grab the walls just for a moment, then we avoid that bounce. It's only really useful in those kind of small sections because you're generally not falling that close to a wall, but it does look pretty cool in the moment. Okay, come on now. Yeah, the knockback in this game can be a little annoying, but it does make up for itself with its usefulness in speedrun tech. Alright, this is the similar room to the one I mentioned earlier, where I'm going to be shooting as much as possible to try and lag the spawns of these enemies. And there we go. For some reason, even though it doesn't really slow Samus down, shooting the game lags those enemy spawns hard, which lets me just run right by them instead of having to deal with them, because those guys are a lot faster than the ones who come out of these other kind of pipes going up to Area 1. This is a tight little damage boost jump there. Now, we are going to get the space jump right now, which is important, but we will try to be using it as little as we possibly can. Because it is slow. It is very, very slow. And so if we can ascend any other way, we try to. Damage boost jumping, unmorph jumps, just whatever we can to not have to use this unless we absolutely have to. The only thing slower is having to actually spider ball up a surface.
Yeah, for Space Jump's first appearance in the Metroid game series, it is pretty lackluster.
Alright, there's a couple items hidden in here, then we're going to go face another Gamma Metroid. One interesting little thing that I kind of made notice of recently, in Metroid 2, when the item fanfare plays, it pauses the music and continues the music where it left off, unlike in Super Metroid, where it constantly repeats the same, like, 10 seconds of the music if you're trying to do something like a 100% run. It's just kind of funny little anecdote I noticed recently. So I wonder what about Super Metroid made them unable to do that. Some of the Gammas we don't have really great strats for, like there's just not a lot of things to like work with in terms of like trapping them, so we just kind of try and stick them in as small of a corner as we can and just shoot them till they die. Sometimes there is not an elegant solution. Now you're going to see one interesting little thing here, which is that we don't actually... Our hitbox for stuff like collecting items is actually a little bit bigger than us. So we get to grab that power-up even though we can't really go into that sand. I don't know why I shot all those... Should just use a missile. Alright, now, this next room is interesting because this is the only room in the run that we encounter that has RNG in terms of enemies. Which is these little fire guys moving around in here. Whether or not they shoot fire on me, it is unsure. Like, we don't know. See, and that one did, and so we just have to try to do a animation cancel on the fire if we do get hit. If you unmorph at the exact same time that you take damage, you'll just phase through it, kind of like K going through an enemy in Super Metroid. This is another alpha that we can get stuck in the ceiling, but it doesn't always work out. So we'll have to deal with those guys again coming out. The only other enemy that has RNG is tucked away at the top of a room that we only visit the very bottom of. And it's this guy who kind of moves up and down and shoots. He's in this area of the tower where all of the beam upgrades in the game are stashed, but we don't have to interact with him because due to the way that beams work in this game, though it is a little bit of a point of contention sometimes, we don't pick up all of the beams in this game, because it's like in Metroid 1 where there's infinite beams. The game does not keep track of like what beam you have and like despawn the pickups or anything. It just keeps respawning the beam item no matter how many times you enter and leave the room and collect it. So we elected to choose not to use them in the run, or not to have them in the run. Oh, didn't quite get it. Okay, we'll just have to do the normal strat. There's a strat where you can trap him in the bottom there, but it's a bit of a pain. He is not playing nice today. Yeah, these gammas in the open rooms are probably the slowest Metroids in the game. We have quick kill setups for every other Metroid, but like gammas are some of the most pain in the butt to trap. But there is some that we get good strats for, like that guy. Like, he goes down real quick. Alright, so that is the last Metroid in this section of Area 2. Or no, Area 3, I'm sorry. So now we are going to head back outside into the lower half. If you guys have played AM2R, you guys are familiar with this area, because it wasn't always super popular with everyone because of how dark it is. But fortunately, that's not really a concern here. There wasn't quite the tech for a whole lot of ambient lighting on the Game Boy. Yeah, and then coming back out of this room, we can just spider throw past all the enemies, and it's not much of a problem. We go way faster than their spawns can take. An interesting little anecdote about those kinds of rooms with the pipes. Those pipes, unlike in any other Metroid game, can actually run out of enemies. Like, if you just keep killing enemies coming out of those pipes, eventually they'll make this disappointing bloop noise, and then they just won't spawn any more enemies until you leave the room and come back. It's pretty funny. Alright, now scoot right under this guy, and then we just get him stuck in the ceiling immediately. Like, there's nothing he can do. He just gets erased. That's a new strat recently made by Behemoth. The old strat was to trap him on the left-hand side in the door. But that strat is much better. Alright. This is a little damage boost we do off this alpha to get us to this other Metroid first. That way we can kill him on the way out and save time. Alright, now this guy we want to get up above us and try and kind of trap him against the wall here. He goes down pretty quick. And then we're going to try and do that little damage glitch I mentioned earlier to phase through the enemy on the way out of here. It's not very consistent, so I probably won't get it. Nope, didn't quite get it. But we kind of just want to lead him to the exit as best we can. And he gave me really good RNG there, so that's cool. Oops, getting hit up a little bit. I am going to be taking a safety refill at the bottom of this next room that I'm going to be in. Just, I want to save my health. There's a trick coming up called Acid Trip. It's a bit of a goofy name we came up with. Get up here. Alright, he's not, there we go. Oh, he got away, he got out. That's too bad. Well, it's a good thing I'm getting the health refill anyways. But, we're gonna be what the game wants you to do here is you go through this big old cave filled with like these squid. You go to this area, you go through this big old cave filled with squid enemies, and then you have to come back up this. You have to come back up into area 2 a little bit to kill 2 more enemies that are hidden away. We don't want to do that. That wastes so much time. So instead, we're going to say, screw that, and we're just going to go right through the acid that the game is blocking us with. This is the only time in the game that we do something like this, because otherwise it's too much of a pain. And there's not really any point, because we need to kill the Metroids regardless. But the game just counts that you've killed another Metroid. It doesn't care what Metroid you killed. So we kill one of the Metroids down in the acid-covered area, which does, by the way, like, have a limit to how high it goes. Like, it'll only fill some rooms, so it works out nicely for doing the trick. It means that once we get to a certain point, there's no risk of dying from the acid anymore. Get off me.
But that being said, the acid knife is surprisingly more easy to screw up than you might think.
Oh, yes. Now, you are going to see me do actually a little more dangerous strats than we would normally take, because I have so much health to do with. Normally, you don't ever want to spider throw in the acid, because it wastes a ton of health, but I have more health than I know what to do with right now, so saving a little bit of time is in my best interests. Helps make up for a little bit of the time loss that we get from taking that safety refill. These guys are a pain to deal with. They get in your way. So we have strats to avoid them going up and down. You can't actually shoot their top, or you can't shoot their sides, rather. You can only shoot them on the top. And so they are a huge pain when you're trying to come at them from any sort of diagonal, especially since diagonal shooting wasn't really in Metroid 2. A little bit of a goof up there. There's a lot of these little floating platforms moving around. And conveniently enough, like, it's almost like the devs wanted us to do this, but there's a health refill right here that we can use to fill back up. And now, if we kill this Alpha Metroid, we will get the water level back to where it's supposed to be. Or the lava level, rather. It looks like acid in this game. Like, it doesn't quite look like magma. At least that's how we perceive it. It looks like, definitively magma in AM2R, but then in Samus Returns, it is definitely some kind of weird purple acid goop stuff. So each game kind of perceives it a little differently. So there's one more Gamma to clear out here, and we will be perfectly good in that department. Then we can go and kill that one lone Metroid that the game wants us to kill. Alright, this is another one that we kind of just trap above us. For those curious, yes, I'm running with splits, but it wasn't just me being lazy. I always prefer to know how I'm doing. The marathon safe strats don't affect my time that much. I know what the negatives times that they add are. One unfortunately disappointing thing about Samus Returns was that a lot of the bestiary of Metroid 2 doesn't show up like they should. Like, I'm sure that anyone who's played it has noticed that a lot of the enemies that are in this game aren't actually in Samus Returns. And they kind of just reuse a lot of Hornodes and a couple other dudes, like the little bats. And you're going to see one of the unique enemies of this game here. There's these little squid guys in the cave coming up ahead, and this is the only area in the game they show up in. There's a couple enemies like this where like they have only one area or even just one room in the game where they show up. And I think it's interesting to see that like the developers really wanted to show that vibrant of a world. Like there's such a wide variety of like animals and everything. That's these little squid guys. They kind of flap up in the air and float down like the little pancake-looking enemies that we saw earlier. But, they're also nice because they drop large healths. And so, like, in a pinch, like, if you're low on health, you can farm these guys heading up to this Metroid to make up for some bad rooms or anything like that. Alright, so this is the one lone Gamma that they want us to go and kill. Waste all that time with, so instead we just get him stuck in the door. Now, what's important here is I'm actually getting him stuck on the edge of my screen, because Metroids can't bounce past the edge of your screen without you moving, when they're taking, like, knockback from a missile. And that's important because Metroids can get knocked out of the room by your missiles, and that means they will not die. You have to leave the room and respawn them, and they'll go back to their original spawn, which would waste a lot of time, especially on that Metroid, because he's on the other side of the room. So it's important to like move a little bit away from the door frame so as to get him stuck on the edge of your screen and not the door itself. And we will never see those little guys again. Like I said, it's interesting. To me, it shows the developers cared a lot about the game. That they would bother to program enemies, even if they're similar to the ones that already exist, for just one room. This is another instance of that. These guys, okay. One second. These little bats and these little guys that jump up out of the acid are, only for that room. Alright, now we're going to be entering Area 4. This area has, as a speedrunner, our least favorite Metroids by a country mile, the Zeta Metroids. We have quick kills for all of these guys, but there's RNG to if they pop out of the quick kill, they will sometimes just shoot a fireball, which will screw up your quick kill, and there's not really anything you can do about it. And this is a huge pain, because if they get out of the quick kill, they take a lot of missiles, I think 15 or 20 to go down.
20.
And they're very hard to like track on the screen because Omega Metroids and Zeta Metroids move relative to you on the screen when they're standing still. Like when they're not doing one of their little lunge attacks, if you move on screen, they'll move relative to you. So they're very hard to chase down sometimes, but the quick kills are reasonably consistent, so hopefully everything goes well with those. And there's one little Zeta that is involved in a cool trick that I'm hoping to land. It's called the Zeta Zag, which we use to collect an item before coming back through the Zeta's room. Alright, so this is our first Zeta. We just pretty much just get in the correct position and mash as fast as we possibly can, hoping they don't pop out. Which he did, but I think I got him. Okay, thank God. He tried to get away, but he didn't quite make it.
Could have been devastating.
Like, I could have wasted like 15-20 seconds trying to chase him down if he had fully gotten away, but he was still kind of like in the middle of post-lunge. So here we're going to get our one beam upgrade, which is the Ice Beam. We need this because the Queen spawns larval Metroids in the final area, which act just like they do in all the other games, where you need the Ice Beam and 5 missiles to kill them. For some reason, Metroid shells like must get harder or something, because we can suddenly kill them with missiles without any beams. Now, at the top of that room, there's the other RNG enemy that I mentioned to you guys earlier, but like I said, we don't interact with him. Oh. There you'll see, one of the reasons we complain about the space jump in this game. If you go a certain amount and don't activate spring jump, or sorry, not spring jump, space jump, you will just float down, and you can't re-jump, and there's nothing you can do about it. Alright. This is the worst Gamma in the game, because we don't really have any good strat to deal with him, so we kind of just gotta, like, shoot around and take pot shots at him. He's super slow and a huge pain. Alright. One little time save we do here is purposely knocking ourselves into these spikes, because it's faster to run on the ground than be in the air, so we can use the invincibility from hitting the spikes to run on the grounded spikes for a moment. Alright. Now we're going to a room that's pretty infamous in casual play, which is the dark room. We know how to navigate it the same as like a dark room in, say, Link to the Past, because we've played this game so much, but like to people new to this game, they have no idea what to do about it. It's a room where you just can't see anything. It is completely dark. And there's two items here. There's one missile tank actually hidden in the room, and then there's a second exit that you have to get to, which has an energy tank. This brings up one other point I wanted to mention, where Metroid 2 actually has an extra E-tank. Like Metroid 1, there is 6 E-tanks, but only 5 slots on our HUD. We still pick up all 6, however, because this is not like the beams. Each energy tank is their own individual item that will stay gone on the overworld, or will stay gone in the world. Alright. I'm going to do a little bit of a unmorph damage jump off this guy to get up here without having to use the space jump, because like I said, it's slow. And we got one more item, or well, 2 items technically, hidden in the ceiling right here. It's the same as it was in Area 2. Yeah, like I said, we avoid space jumping whenever possible. It's just slow. Now, the first Gamma that you meet, we nickname him Sand Gamma because he's in a tunnel filled with sand. This Gamma right here is true Sand Gamma, and you'll see why in a second. His entire room is literally nothing but sand, in all directions. Come on, let's get in the door. There we go. That's another relatively new strat. Shoutouts to Behemoth for figuring that out. Before that, we just kind of fought him in his little sandy cave and just hope for the best. Now this is where we're going to be doing something called the Zeta Zag. We purposely will be spider throwing into this Zeta to try and get up to the screw attack above him before he's able to do anything to us. Alright, worked out this time, cool. I messed that up in the practice for the first time in quite a while, but everything went fine this time. We'll be dealing with him on the way back out. It's kind of interesting, like, there's almost a little bit of lore to this room, because it implies that, like, the whole entrance to this room collapsed at some point, and now you're just, like, weaving your way to the screw attack from the backside. Alright, so now we gotta aim over to the right and get him over here. Now, this is the least reliable of the Zeta quick kills. We gotta get him, jump up on that to get him to dive at us, and then jump up on the shell to follow him up the room. It's not like the other ones where we can freeze him in place. We kind of gotta follow him a little bit, but it went well, so I'm happy with that. There is a little bit faster of a strat that we can do right there in order to be able to damage jump off of that one enemy that I killed with my screw attack. But it's a huge risk because if you mess it up, you fall all the way to the bottom of this huge room that we're in. By the way, that's 100%. That is all the items in the game. Now there's nothing left to do but kill all the Metroids. One more room of these spikes where we can run on them. This one is the same kind of room as Sand Gamma, but since it's a Zeta, the quick kill is actually easier to set up. Yeah, these are either the easiest Metroids because they have a consistent kill setup, or they give us the stupid RNG and they're the absolute worst. Thankfully, they all went well this time.
I would argue they're actually the hardest Metroid in the game.
Yeah.
Or a speedrun perspective.
Mm-hmm. To quickly explain something, even though Omega Metroids technically have more health, like in terms of the game's programming, Zeta Metroids have more health in practice, because there is a weak spot on the back of all Omega Metroids, which makes them take, I believe, 3 times as much damage to missiles. So it only takes 14, I think, to kill a Omega, where it takes 20 Metroids to kill, or 20 Metroids, 20 missiles to kill a Zeta. So they have effectively the most health of any Metroid other than the Queen. So we're going to go through a couple of caves, and then we're going to be making our way over to the last Alpha Metroid in the game, and the first Omega Metroid. That little room up right there repeats one more time, and it changes the side of all the enemies to try and trick you, which is pretty funny. It's very easy to mix them up and get hit unintentionally. Alright. Here you're going to see something pretty interesting. This is the only time in the game where the acid actually rises. When you kill this alpha, the game wants you to cycle back around this whole area and come back to the central room, but that's slow. So we're just going to go back the path we came down and come back up it again, because that's a lot faster than taking the long way around. Kind of bad RNG there. We want to lead him towards the edge, but it's not a big deal. Yeah, so here you're going to see... You only see it for just a sec, so don't blink. But the acid is... Oh, you actually can't even see it from there. Never mind. I apologize. But yeah, believe me, I'm not lying to you. The acid does rise. You just don't see it.
I would actually argue that the acid rising would display some form of sense. More evolved Metroids.
The way that I've always read it, personally, is that the earthquakes are the Queen Metroid sensing that her children are being killed, and she's like freaking out and getting mad. Pretty much perfect Omega there. I didn't get one shot, so I didn't get as fast of a quick kill as I possibly could have, but it went pretty smoothly. He didn't get out of pattern or anything like that. Now this is the one where we go left. Got really good health here, which is always great. So it makes this nice and easy to go through. This is going to be a couple of series of pretty similar looking rooms leading up to the Omega Nest, which has by far, I think, the creepiest song in the game, outside of the ambient noise tracks. Shoutouts again to Behemoth for coming up with a more efficient movement strat for this room. Before this, we used to just kind of space jump up against the blocks. Alright, so this area is nothing but 3 Omega Metroid nests. We're going to fight them in quick succession, and then we're going to be heading towards the Queen. These rooms are interesting because they are very fast going one way and very slow going the other because you have to spend so much time in the air. Alright, I just hope for good RNG, hope he lunges at the right time. Thank you. Okay, I wasted a little bit of time, so I'm probably not going to get the perfect quick kill. I might have to reset him, but we'll see. Yeah, okay. But I made up for it pretty quickly, so everything's fine.
This last section is one of the huge differences between any percent and 100% though.
Yeah.
In any percent, you don't have screw attack, and so if you screw up in Omega Metroid, you have to live with your mistake, and every mistake is infinitely more devastating than it is in 100%.
You also have to be really scared of running out of missiles, because since Omegas take so few missiles, if you hit them in the back, you don't really get room to breathe with your missile counts in the same way, since you just have rationed your missiles for the Omegas. So about, I think, 42 overall is all the missiles you want to use up, and there's not really any refills anywhere near here, and there is an enemy to farm both health, and there are enemies to farm both health and missiles, but there's only one enemy in this area that drops missiles. It only drops them 5 at a time, and it's not even all that close to a door. So, like, having to go and farm can kill an any percent run just as effectively as messing up an Omega. But that is why I run 100%. Nice and consistent 100%. Kind of got stuck in the wall there, but worked out. This is also the last place that there's any big difference between the out-of-bounds categories. Once we finish this area, if we were going out of bounds, we would go back to a certain part of shaft. I believe it's this shaft right here. And we would fall down that shaft and try to get a warp to open up in the wall, which would let us skip a whole long run-up that I'm going to have to do towards the Queen Metroid area and just get us straight to there. That's one thing that I was saying about, like, how pretty much the out of bounds only cuts out downtime, which is something that's pretty nice in this kind of run. Like, the only thing of note that it cuts out is Skyscraper, which is also actually a point of huge inconsistency for the run, so that's not actually a huge deal. There are a couple of smaller warps, though, that make out of bound somewhat inconsistent on its own, so it's not a perfect category either. All the big warps are nice and consistent, but the little warps are the ones that can be a bit of a pain. Alright, and I don't even have to worry about farming any enemies. My stats here are actually amazing. Like, this health and this health count is fantastic for where I am right now. And there's literally not going to be another enemy in this game except for Metroids. We have the larval Metroids, and then the Queen herself. Depending on how technical you want to get, there's a couple floating platform enemies, but they have no way to harm you, so I just consider those more of NPCs almost. But yeah, so this area is just all about optimizing your movement. We have to wind back and forth across a similar looking room a few times with some waterfalls going on in the background. Or, well, what's implied to be waterfalls. In AM2R, this area is really beautiful to look at. Nice little calm before the storm of, like, the, genetic labs, as they are called in AM2R. Now, one interesting thing here, this stuff is the goop, kind of goopy water from the start of the game. And you will always bounce in it, even if you're falling from a one-tile high gap. So we morph and unmorph here to roll along the bottom of this, well, so we can still keep up the fastest amount of movement speed. Because we can't spider throw to the right, of course. Alright, and that is the last of our little area. We have one more big room up here, which come out of another little pile of that goop, and come up to the top of this room, and we will enter the final area of the game. If we didn't already have it, there's a room for us where we could get Ice Beam here, but Ice Beam is right on the way of that hidden room in the tower, so we'd just prefer to take that. There's the little Metroid egg. Oop, I forgot to split, so I'll just skip that split. Yeah, now we just have our normal, kind of standard endgame larval Metroids. It's implied that the queen just gave birth to these, that's why the counter just jumped back up so suddenly. You can waste a good bit of time if they end up latched onto you, so it's pretty important to make sure that, like, you always have your Ice Beam equipped in the right situations and everything like that. These little diamonds you see right there are going to become more important in a minute. You'll see why. Kind of just let this guy drag himself around the platform and snipe him as soon as he comes on screen. And that is it. That is all the larval Metroids. Now all we have left is the queen. Oops. I did not realize that was a spike there. Now, on this first pattern... Oh, wow, really? No opening at all? Thanks, queen. Now, the way that the queen works is, when she lunges at me with her mouth open, I can, shoot a missile in, and then it'll freeze her, and I can climb in and bomb her stomach, which is the most effective way to do damage. When she gives me a phase with her mouth always closed, like she did at the start of the fight, it's a huge pain, because it means I have to wait for her to go back and shoot those projectiles before I can deal any sort of major damage to her. Now, I'm hoping we're going to avoid it, but there is a chance when the queen can turn into a zombie. But nope, we got her. So what'll happen is, if the queen dies and gets to exactly 0 health on your last set of bombs, she will become invincible to missiles, and then cannot die until you freeze her again, and then shoot her with the, until you bomb her stomach again. And I have never had it happen to me in a run, thankfully, but I'm pretty sure that some people in our community have, and that's just like a super heartbreaking thing to happen.
Interestingly enough, Metroid 2 is, I believe, one of the very few Metroid games to not have an end timer at all.
I mean, we have a timer. You mean an escape sequence?
In-game. Yeah, in-game escape timer.
I thought you meant the, like, the in-game time. Which is another thing to talk about. It doesn't work.
I mean, it might as well not be in the game.
The
game time.
Yeah, just as a quick overview, the in-game time in Metroid 2 is hilariously broken. So you can never, ever actually use it to time an accurate run. Alright. Holy crap, that was a huge gold split by like 12 seconds. Let's go. That was a really good final split. Alright, well, I got a 1:05:08, which is about a minute off of my old PB. My best current run is a 1:04:31, just because I'm not timing myself versus my old splits. But, yeah, so that is Metroid 2. I hope you guys enjoyed. A little bit of context for the whole in-game timer thing. The way that it works, it can just suddenly drop seconds. Like, when you're going, if you go through a door when it tries to increment a minute, or if you pause when it tries to increment a minute, or if you load if you load a save, just loading a save, not even like at the wrong time. If you just load a save, it'll drop the amount of seconds that's on the timer, no matter how high it is, and it'll ignore adding a minute if you go through a door right when it adds a minute, or pause when it adds a minute. So it's technically possible with a task to have a 0:00 in-game time in the game without cheating. So never use it to time your runs. We've had world record runs that have worse in-game times than the world record before it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I really love this game. Metroid 2 is actually what got me into speedrunning in the first place. Back before I even knew there was any sort of online speedrunning communities, I speedran Metroid 2 on my own, just with a route that I made up to the best of my ability. And I've been able to kind of get this community going. Back when I first started running this game, it was literally just 2 active runners, me and the world record holder at the time, Empty Eye. And through my stream and through various other places in the Metroid community, I've been able to get some more and more people running this game, and it feels really good that we've got a lot more people interested in the game now, because I think this is a really underrated game. I think that this is an amazing speed game, I think this is an amazing game, and I really hope that you all enjoyed watching me run it. So yeah, I think that about does it for me. Anything else to say, Flipside?
Not much of note.
I guess one more thing to say is that, like, if any of you guys are interested in running this game, hit me up, look up my YouTube channel, hit me up on Twitter. It's the same as my Twitch account username. Feel free to message me on Twitch, anything like that. We can add you to the Discord. We have a lot of people in there who are in and out. We're getting more and more runners of this game pretty often, so please, just hit us up. We would love to tell you about one of our favorite games. And I think that about does it for me. You guys will see me again later on the Fusion run. I'll be commentating Fusion any percent. Ooh.
Thanks. Have a good one, Bridget.
Hey, you still want to showcase that thing?
Yes, I do. Please add me back. I totally slipped my mind.
Alright.
Hey guys, I lied. Sorry about that. I forgot. I wanted to show you guys one of the warps real quick. Alright, so this is an area. This is gonna show you one of the warps that we would use in the 100% out of bounds category. So just to give you some context, we are here on Area 1 in the first temple. Just show you where we are. This is where we came out and headed back out to get to the later Metroids in this area. So we're gonna go up top and use something called the select glitch. It didn't affect my run, thankfully, but there's a chance whenever you hit the select button in this game and you're moving, you can cause a tile loading error, which makes the game incorrectly load the next set of tiles it puts on screen, which lets you do all kinds of crazy out of bounds things. And so because of that, there's a couple documented warps that we've been able to find that bring us to new areas of the game faster. So you're going to hear me spamming select a little bit, and we're going to get that to happen. So see, now there's this little hole here with that glitchy looking thing heading right down it. And we drop down here. We've got a couple screens to fall through. I'm positioned in a correct spot right here to fall through this ceiling here. And we are now somewhere you will recognize in just one sec. We are actually at Arachnus. This skips Skyscraper. And it helps make runs a good bit more consistent. And this is another category we can run. So, if you're ever interested, feel free to hit me up. And that should be about it for me. Just wanted to make sure I showed you guys that there is a lot more to this game that I haven't shown you yet. So, I hope you guys enjoy. And I hope that you guys have a good night.
Alright, that was Kenta with Metroid 2, 100% no out of bounds. Coming up next is Bread for Brunch with the original Metroid for the NES with 100% deathless. Stay tuned as I get you all set up.